The docking bay of station filled with a strange blue light as the transport ship descended. Grace stood in formation with the other recruits, watching the craft settle onto the landing pad with perfect precision. He felt small in his uniform, still new to military life, still learning where everything was in the massive human colony. They were nothing like the videos in training showed them. Their ship was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, with curves and edges that seemed to move even when they stayed still. The metal surfaces reflected light like nothing had ever seen before. He had been on station for only 3 months, and now an entire empire was arriving at his base. Colonel Hayes stood at the front of the formation, her back straight and her face hard like stone. She was the commander of all human forces on this frontier world, and nothing happened here without her approval. The other soldiers around stood so still they looked like statues. Everyone wanted to make a good impression. The vessel opened its main door and a ramp extended down. The first figure to step out was not what expected. She was tall, yes, and her skin had a faint shimmer to it, like water caught in moonlight. But what caught attention was how she moved. Every step was controlled and perfect, like she had practiced walking 1,000 times. Her hair was long and silver, and it moved through the air like it was underwater even though the docking bay was perfectly still. This was Princess Elia of the Empire. Had read the briefing materials that morning. The princess was here on an educational exchange program. She wanted to understand other species and how they lived. The Empire had been the ruling power of the galaxy for 300 years. They had faster ships, better weapons, and minds that could read thoughts across planets. Humans had been a colony species for only 60 years. Humans were still children playing with basic technology. Princess Elia moved down the ramp with 3 guards behind her. They wore armor that seemed to be made of light itself. Could not even guess how such things worked. The guards took positions on either side of their princess, scanning the docking bay with eyes that seemed to see everything. Colonel Hayes stepped forward and raised her hand in the traditional human greeting. "Welcome to station, Princess Elia. We are honored to receive you." The princess turned her head toward the colonel. When her eyes met Hayes's eyes, something strange happened. The colonel blinked, and her expression shifted. It was like the princess had reached into the colonel's mind and learned everything about her in a single moment. Found this disturbing in a way he could not explain. "I am pleased to be here," the princess said. Her voice was soft but clear, like bells made of crystal. "Your species interests me. I wish to understand how you have survived on this harsh world with your limited abilities." Felt several soldiers around him tense at these words. Limited abilities. He understood what the princess meant. Humans could not read minds. Humans could not see across planets. Humans got tired and cold and sick. Humans needed food and water and sleep. Compared to humans were barely more advanced than animals. The briefing had covered this too. They were not cruel about human limitations. They were simply factual. To them, stating that humans were limited was the same as stating that water was wet. It was not an insult. It was just truth. Colonel Hayes continued without showing any reaction to the princess's words. "We have prepared quarters for you and your staff. We also have a full schedule of base tour and educational sessions planned." "That is acceptable," the princess said. She turned to look at the formation of recruits. Her silver eyes moved across their faces, studying them like she was reading words on a page. When her gaze reached, she paused for just a moment. Then she looked away. Felt his heart rate return to normal. He was not important enough to hold a princess's attention. After the formal greetings ended, the delegation was escorted to their quarters, and the other recruits were released back to their duties. He spent the rest of the day doing maintenance work on the electrical systems in the lower levels of the base. By the time evening came, his hands were dirty and his back hurt. The next morning, a message came to the barracks. Was told to report to Colonel Hayes's office immediately. He cleaned his hands and changed into a fresh uniform, wondering what he had done wrong. It was common to get called in for small violations or problems, and was certain he had made some mistake without knowing it. When he entered the colonel's office, he found the princess standing by the window, looking out at the rocky landscape beyond the base. Up close, she was even more striking than she had been on the docking pad. Her uniform seemed to be woven from silver threads, and it caught the light in ways that made it hard to focus on her actual form. "Private Grace," the colonel said, reading from a document. "Third month of service. Basic combat training completed. Mechanical systems knowledge at acceptable level. No major violations." The princess turned from the window. "This one will do," she said. "Your Highness," asked, uncertain what was happening. "The princess has requested a personal guide for her stay on station," Colonel Hayes said. "Someone to show her how humans live and work, how you organize yourselves, how you survive on a world like this. You have been chosen for this duty." Felt his mouth go dry. "I am not sure I am qualified, Colonel. There are many more experienced soldiers." "You are available," the princess said. "That is what matters. You will show me your base. You will explain human behavior. You will answer my questions." It was not a request. Understood this clearly. "Yes, princess," he said. "I am honored." "See that you do this correctly," Colonel Hayes said. "The princess represents the Empire. She is here at the highest levels of diplomacy. This assignment is important." Nodded. He did not feel honored. He felt small and nervous and completely unprepared to explain human existence to an alien princess. But he was a recruit, and recruits did what they were told. The princess studied him again with those silver eyes. "Show me where the ordinary humans work," she said. "Show me how you function. Begin now." Turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, he heard the princess's footsteps following. As he led her through the corridors of station, he tried to think of what to say. How did you explain being human to someone who was not? How did you make someone understand why you fought, why you endured, why you stayed alive on a world that wanted to kill you? He had no answers yet, but he knew he would have to find them, showed the princess through the main sections of station. She moved through the corridors with the same controlled grace she had shown on the landing pad. Her guards followed 2 steps behind her, always alert. Soldiers stopped what they were doing and stared as she passed. Did not blame them. She looked like someone from a dream. They visited the cafeteria where human soldiers ate. The princess watched them use utensils and consume food. She asked why humans needed to eat 3 times each day. He tried to explain about metabolism and energy, but he could see in her eyes that she found the entire process strange and somewhat inefficient. They went to the medical bay, where Dr. Palmer showed the princess human anatomy. Palmer was good at his job. He did not try to hide anything or make humans seem more advanced than they were. He simply showed the princess what human bodies could and could not do. She asked many questions. Some of them could answer. Others he simply did not know. By the afternoon, was tired. Showing someone around the base was harder work than any physical training he had done. The princess seemed to have an endless supply of questions, and she expected precise answers to all of them. They were walking through the outer sections of the base when the princess stopped. She turned to look at with a direct stare. "Show me the dangerous zone," she said. Felt something cold move through his chest. "I cannot do that, Your Highness. Those areas are restricted. No personnel are allowed without specific authorization from Colonel Hayes." "I am royalty of the Empire," the princess said. "I have authority over this colony. I am authorizing your entry. Show me where you have identified apex predators." Knew about the apex predators. Every soldier on station knew about them. They were massive creatures that lived in the rocky terrain beyond the base. They had attacked multiple human groups over the past year. 3 soldiers had been killed. Their weapons were ineffective against these animals. The creatures seemed to have armor in their skin that regular bullets could not penetrate. Everyone stayed away from the forbidden zone. "It is not safe," said. "The predators are extremely dangerous. One could kill both of us in seconds." "Then you will show me your fear," the princess said. "This is important data for my study. How does a human react to genuine danger? How does a species survive when it is physically weak?" Wanted to refuse. Every instinct in his body told him this was a bad idea, but refusing a direct order from the princess was not something a recruit could do. And technically, she had the authority to override the restricted zone. That was the problem with diplomacy. Their government outranked everything in human colonies. He went to the equipment room and obtained a rifle and a communication unit. The princess declined both items, saying she did not need protection. Found this statement deeply troubling. They left through the east gate. The landscape of station stretched out before them. The ground was rocky and uneven. There were very few trees. The vegetation was hostile. Sharp plants grew low to the ground, designed by millions of years of evolution to defend themselves against the creatures that lived here. The sky was gray and cold, even though it was the warmest part of the day. Walked slowly, his rifle ready. The princess followed him with those silver eyes watching everything. She seemed fascinated by the plants and the small animals that scattered as they approached, kept waiting for an alarm in his mind, a warning from his body that they had made a serious mistake. They had been walking for 30 minutes when Captain Davis appeared on a ridge above them. He was leading a patrol, and he immediately signaled them to stop. "Private Grace," Davis called out, "you are in a restricted zone. Return to base immediately." "The princess has authorized our presence," called back. Davis descended the ridge quickly. When he reached them, he saluted to the princess, but his expression was very serious. "Your Highness, I must respectfully advise against this action. We have detected apex predator movement in this sector. Only this morning we found fresh tracks less than 2 kilometers from here." The princess looked at Davis with the same uninterested expression she had given Colonel Hayes. "I wish to continue. Private Grace will guide me. You may return to your patrol." Davis looked at. His eyes were asking a question, but had no authority to decide this. A recruit did not overrule a princess. "It is all right," Captain said, though he did not believe this statement at all. Davis was not happy, but he saluted and took his patrol back toward the base. Watched them leave, and he felt like he had just made a terrible mistake. The princess continued walking, followed. As they moved deeper into the rocky terrain, the world became quieter. No birds sang, no small animals moved. The only sound was the wind moving across the stone. His rifle felt very light in his hands. He was beginning to understand that a weapon was not protection. A weapon was a comfort blanket. When you faced something truly dangerous, a weapon meant almost nothing. "Stop," the princess said suddenly. Stopped, he saw it immediately. On the ground, pressed into the dust, was a track. It was the size of his hand, but it was not a hand. This was a foot. This was a claw. This was something that belonged to something very large. More tracks appeared as they looked. They formed a pattern. Something had walked through this area not long ago, something big, something that had then turned and gone in a different direction. "The apex predators live here," the princess said. It was not a question. "Yes," said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "We need to return to the base." The princess turned her head slowly, looking at the rocky terrain around them. For the first time, saw something that was not pure confidence in her silver eyes. He saw curiosity, and underneath the curiosity, he thought he saw something else, something that looked almost like the smallest trace of doubt. "We will continue a short distance further," the princess said. "Then we will return." Wanted to argue. Every part of his training and his survival instinct was screaming at him to leave this place. But he was a recruit. The princess was giving orders. And so he walked forward into the territory of the most dangerous predators on station, waiting for something terrible to happen. It did not take long to arrive. The canyon walls rose up on both sides of them. The ground beneath their feet became uneven and difficult. wanted to go back, but the princess was walking forward and he could not abandon her. They moved deeper into the rock formations where the shadows grew long and dark. Then the silence changed. It went from normal silence to wrong silence. It was the kind of silence that meant something had noticed them. Something large had turned its attention in their direction. Raised his rifle. He scanned the edges of the canyon looking for movement. He saw nothing at first. Then he saw the shape. It was massive and dark, moving along a ridge of rock with terrible purpose. It was one of the apex predators. "Move," said quietly to the princess. "We need to leave this place right now." The princess did not move. She stood very still, watching the creature. As she watched, more shapes appeared. A second predator came down from the left side of the canyon. A third appeared directly ahead of them on the ground. They were surrounded. This was not a simple encounter. This was a hunting situation. The apex predators were larger than had imagined. Each one was the size of a ground vehicle. Their bodies were covered in scales that looked like stone. Their eyes were large and completely black. Their mouths were long, with teeth that were visible even when they were closed. These were creatures that had evolved for one purpose only. They were made to hunt and to kill. The lead predator made a low sound. It was not quite a growl. It was something deeper and more ancient than that. It was a sound that went directly into his bones and made them ache. The princess took a step backward. This was the first time had seen her show any reaction to fear. She reached for her communication device, but the canyon walls created interference. The device would not work here. She was isolated. They were both isolated. "They are testing us," the princess said in a low voice. "They are determining if we are a threat or a meal." Did not answer. He was too busy raising his rifle and preparing to defend himself and the princess. He knew that his bullets would probably not penetrate their armor, but he would try anyway. He would try because he had nothing else to do. The lead predator took a step forward. It was moving slowly, almost casually, as if it had already decided what would happen and was simply going through the motions. The other two predators spread out, moving to cut off any possible escape route. Raised his rifle and fired. The bullet struck the lead predator in the shoulder. The impact was visible, but the bullet did not penetrate the scales. It simply bounced away. The predator did not even seem to notice. It continued walking toward the princess. Fired again and again. He aimed for the soft tissue around the eyes and the mouth. Nothing worked. The bullets were useless. He had known they would be useless, but knowing and experiencing the truth of it were very different things. The lead predator was very close now, could smell it. It smelled like blood and stone and something ancient that had nothing to do with the human world. He could see the individual scales on its body. He could see the way its muscles moved beneath its skin. This creature was absolutely perfect at what it did. It was a predator without any weakness. Did something that surprised himself. He threw his rifle to the side. It fell uselessly on the rocks. Then he stepped in front of the princess. He put his body between her and the predator. It was not a logical decision. It was not a decision that would save either of them. It was simply what a human did when someone they had been ordered to protect was in danger. The predator paused. It was less than 2 meters away now. Could feel the heat of its breath on his face. It could kill him in a fraction of a second. There was nothing stopping it. Looked directly into those black eyes. He did not show fear, even though he felt it. Instead, he stood very straight. He stood like a human. He stood like a soldier. He stood like something that refused to break. And he did not look away. The predator made another sound. This one was different from the first. It was higher and more complex. The other two predators responded by making similar sounds. They were communicating with each other. They were discussing something. His legs were shaking, but he did not move. His hands were clenched into fists, and his whole body was ready for the impact that was about to come. But he did not retreat, and he did not stop looking the lead predator in the eyes. The lead predator took a step backward, then another. The princess gasped behind. She saw what was happening. The creature was leaving. The other two predators were also moving. They were backing away from the princess, moving back toward the canyon walls. They were leaving the prey alive. They were abandoning the hunt. Within seconds, all three predators had disappeared into the shadows. The canyon was suddenly empty except for the princess. The silence returned to normal. The world went back to being a place where they might survive the next minute. His legs gave out. He sat down hard on the ground. His whole body was shaking. The princess sat down next to him. They did not speak. They simply sat there in the rocky canyon, alive and breathing, while the creatures that had been about to kill them vanished into the darkness. After a long time, the princess said something. "They were afraid of you," she said. "I have studied predator behavior across 100 worlds. I have never seen apex predators show fear, yet they were afraid of you." Still could not speak. He was trying to understand what had just happened. He was trying to understand why he was still alive. "You stood in front of me," the princess continued. "You had no weapon that could hurt them. You had no technology that could save you. You simply stood there and refused to move. You refused to break." Finally looked at her. "We need to get back to the base," he said. The princess nodded. "Yes," she said, "we do, but we will not return to the base the same as we left it. Something has changed." They walked back through the rocky terrain in silence. Behind them, in the shadows of the canyon, the apex predators watched them leave. And in that moment, something very old and very new met in the depths of station. Something about respect had been born in that canyon. Something about understanding had begun. Colonel Hayes was waiting at the east gate when the princess returned. Her face was very hard and her eyes were very angry. Behind her stood Captain Davis and two guards. They had been searching for nearly 2 hours. "Your Highness," Colonel Hayes said, keeping her voice controlled, "I was very concerned about your safety. We have standing orders to keep all personnel out of the apex predator zones." The princess looked at the colonel. There was something different about her now. Her silver eyes were less distant. "I understand," she said. "I was wrong to insist on entering this zone. Private Grace attempted to warn me, but I did not listen." Colonel Hayes looked at. He expected anger, but instead there was curiosity in her expression. "What happened out there?" she asked. The princess answered before could speak. "We encountered 3 apex predators. They approached us with clear intention to attack. Private Grace protected me and demonstrated behavior that caused the predators to retreat. I witnessed something that my knowledge of predator behavior cannot explain." Captain Davis stepped forward. "Are you both injured?" Looked at the princess. She shook her head. "No," said, "we are fine. The predators left." This was not the normal response anyone expected. Apex predators did not simply leave. They hunted. They killed. They did not show mercy to prey that could not fight back. Colonel Hayes issued orders to have the princess taken to the medical bay. Dr. Palmer was already there waiting. He examined first, treating the minor cuts on his hands where he had fallen to the ground. Then he examined the princess, who refused any treatment. "You were very lucky," Palmer said. "Apex predators have attacked soldiers in full combat gear. None of them have survived." The princess looked at. "It was not luck," she said. "It was something else, something I did not understand about human nature." They were moved to a debriefing room in Colonel Hayes's command center. The colonel sat across from them with a recording device running. She wanted every detail of what had happened in the canyon. Told her about the tracks. He told her about the 3 predators appearing. He told her about firing his rifle and watching the bullets bounce away. When he reached the part where he stood in front of the princess, his voice changed slightly. "I did not think," he said. "I just moved. That is what humans do. When someone is in danger, we move to protect them. We do not think about whether it is logical. We do not calculate the chances of success. We just do it." Colonel Hayes was writing notes. She looked up at, "Why?" she asked simply. Had to think about this question. Why had he done it? Why had he stepped in front of a creature that could kill him in a second? "Because I was supposed to keep her safe," said. "That was my duty. That is what a soldier does." The princess made a sound. It was not quite a word. It was something like agreement. She was looking at with an expression he had never seen from her before. It was an expression that contained respect. "In my studies," the princess said, "I have analyzed human weakness. You are slower than my species. You are weaker. You are shorter-lived. You have limited mental abilities, but I did not fully understand your strength." She stood up and walked to the window. Through it, they could see the rocky terrain beyond the base. Somewhere out there, the apex predators were moving through the darkness. The princess continued, "there are no predators that threaten us. We have never needed to stand in front of each other. We have never needed to sacrifice ourselves. We have always had superior technology and superior intellect. But when that predator approached, I saw something that technology cannot create." She turned back to face. "I saw courage. I saw something willing to die for another. I saw the willingness to refuse to break." Colonel Hayes stopped writing. She was listening very carefully now. "The predators," the princess said, "are from a species that evolved to kill. They are perfect predators. They have hunted on this world for thousands of years. They respect strength. They respect predators like themselves. But what they saw in this human recruit was something that matched their own power. They saw something that refused to submit, something that was willing to stand against them." Understood what the princess was saying. The predators had not left because they were afraid of his weapon. They had left because they recognized something in him. They recognized a fellow predator. They recognized something that would not break. "Humans are creatures," the princess said. "Your world is harsh and killing. Your creatures are deadly. You have evolved on a planet that wants you dead. But instead of becoming passive, you have become strong. You have learned to stand and fight." She looked at again. "I came to this colony to study an inferior species. I came to study humans because you are weak, but I was wrong. You are not weak. You are predators from a predator world. You are simply predators with a different kind of strength." Dr. Palmer had been listening silently. He spoke now. "They have never faced a species that could challenge them on equal terms," he said. "That is why you have peace across the galaxy. No one can fight you." "Yes," the princess said, "but peace based only on power is not true peace. Today I learned something about a different kind of power, a power that comes from here." She touched her chest over her heart, "a power that comes from being willing to die for others." Captain Davis cleared his throat. "Your Highness, what will you tell your government about this encounter?" The princess turned her silver eyes to the captain. "I will tell them the truth," she said. "I will tell them that humanity is not a species to be controlled or managed. I will tell them that you are something the Empire has never fully understood. I will tell them that in the next conflict that comes to the galaxy, they should be grateful that humans are our allies and not our enemies." Colonel Hayes leaned back in her chair. There was a slight smile on her face. "Thank you, Your Highness," she said. "That is good to hear." Felt something ease inside his chest. The princess had seen something in him that he had not seen in himself. He had simply done what felt right. But that simple action had changed the way an entire empire saw his species. The debriefing ended, was told to return to his quarters. As he was leaving, the princess said his name. "Private Grace," she said, "you were never just a recruit to me. I was wrong about that from the beginning." Did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He simply nodded and left the room. Behind him, he heard the princess continuing to talk with Colonel Hayes, already planning how to present this information to the court. Princess Elia returned to the 3 weeks later. The debriefing in the canyon had changed everything for her, but she knew that change would not come easily to her government. The empire had ruled for 300 years without challenge. Admitting that a lesser species might have value was a difficult concept. She submitted her formal report to the Imperial Council in the Great Hall. The hall was where the most important decisions were made. Here, the most powerful minds of the Empire gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. The Emperor himself sat on a throne made of metal that had been collected from 15 different worlds. Princess Elia stood before them and told her story. She described the apex predators and how they approached with clear intent to kill. She described the human recruit who had no weapon that could penetrate the creature's armor. She described how he stood in front of her without any hope of success. Most of the council members listened without showing emotion. There were not creatures who displayed their feelings openly, but Princess Elia saw the small changes in their expressions. She saw the doubt. She saw the dismissal. One council member, Lord, spoke first. "This is merely one human showing unusual courage," he said. "One soldier does not represent an entire species. Humans are still limited creatures with limited technology. They are still children on the path to civilization." Another member agreed. "We have studied human capabilities for 60 years. They remain inferior in every significant way. One encounter with predators does not change this assessment." The Emperor raised his hand and the council became silent. He looked directly at Princess Elia. "You seem to believe this incident is important," he said. "Why?" Princess Elia took a moment before answering. She had prepared for this moment during her entire journey back to The incident is important, she said, because it reveals something about human nature that our science has missed. We have measured their physical strength and their mental capacity. We have compared them to our own abilities and found them lacking. But we have not measured something that cannot be measured by our traditional methods. She activated a display device. The footage from her suit's recorder appeared in the air above the council. It showed the 3 apex predators surrounding her and it showed firing his useless weapon. And then it showed the moment when he stood in front of her. The council watched in silence. "Watch what happens next," Princess Elia said. The footage continued. The apex predators approached, did not move. He did not run. He did not hide. He stood. And then the predators stopped. Then they retreated. "I have reviewed this footage 100 times, the princess said. "I have consulted with every predator behavior specialist on our world. No one can explain why creatures of that magnitude would retreat from prey that could not harm them. But I believe I have found the answer." She paused, making sure she had the council's full attention. "The apex predators of Station are perfect hunters. They are made entirely for one purpose. That purpose is to recognize and respect strength. When they approached Grace, they expected him to run or to hide. Instead, he stood. He showed them something that predators understand. He showed them strength. He showed them courage. He showed them the willingness to die rather than submit." The Emperor leaned forward. This gesture meant he was interested. The princess continued, "Have always believed that strength comes from technology and intellect. We have never questioned this belief. But humans come from a world where these things matter less. Humans come from a world where physical strength, willpower, and the ability to protect others matter more than anything else." Lord stood up. "You are asking us to believe that humans are superior in this quality of willpower." "No," Princess Elia said. "I am asking you to believe that humans possess something we do not. Something that we have never needed to develop because we have never faced true danger. Something that apex predators recognize and respect." The Emperor made a decision gesture. "Continue your analysis," he said, "but also begin military assessments. I want to understand how this human strength would perform in actual conflict situations." 3 months later, the Imperial Order came to Station. Military strategists from the Empire arrived to analyze human combat capabilities. They studied human tactics. They reviewed human history. They interviewed soldiers and commanders. The reports they sent back to were very different from previous assessments of human capability. Grace did not know any of this when Colonel Hayes called him into her office. He thought he was being punished for the incident in the canyon. Instead, he found the colonel smiling. "You have been recommended for advanced training," Colonel Hayes said. "Advanced combat techniques, advanced leadership training, advanced command preparation. The Empire wants to understand how humans learn to survive in harsh conditions." Could not believe what he was hearing. "I do not understand," he said. "The princess said I showed courage, but I did nothing special. I simply stood there." "That," the colonel said, "is exactly what made it special. You did nothing but refuse to move. You had no plan. You had no strategy. You simply stood and refused to break. That is something they are beginning to understand they do not possess." Captain Davis came into the office then. He was smiling as well. "There is another part to this," he said. "The government has sent a new communication. They are interested in forming a closer military alliance with humanity. They want humans in their training programs. They want to learn from you." Looked at both of them. "Why?" he asked. "I am just a recruit. I was just doing what felt right." "Exactly," Colonel Hayes said. "And that is what makes you valuable. They have had power for so long that they have forgotten what it means to be willing to die for something. You reminded them." That night stood at the edge of the base, looking out at the canyon where everything had changed. The apex predators moved in the distance. They did not attack the human settlement anymore. Something had changed in their behavior as well. They seemed to respect the creatures that had stood against them. A message arrived in his personal communication device. It was from Princess Elia. The message was short, but it contained words he would never forget. "Thank you for showing me what humanity truly is. You were never just a recruit. You were a human from and that is something the galaxy has finally learned to respect. I look forward to the day when our two species stand together as equals. That day is coming faster now because of you." Read the message 3 times. He did not show it to anyone. It was not about fame or recognition. It was about understanding. It was about a princess who had come to understand that strength was not measured in technology or intellect. Strength was measured in the willingness to stand against the darkness and refuse to break. Grace had done nothing special. He had simply been human, but in a galaxy of advanced species and ancient power, being human was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. The apex predators howled in the distance and for the first time heard respect in their voices. He was home. He was where he belonged, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again.